Hello folks and welcome to our game on this lovely Monday afternoon. The weather's sort of breaking a little bit, but our spirits aren't, Michael, because there's been another big weekend of GA. How are things with you? You have yourself muted like an ape.
The weather is well and truly broken, Shane, now at this stage. It's gone. Whatever last winds of summer we were getting is long gone now at this stage, and it's turning into that kind of wintry slog that we all love when the fast lads start slowing down on the pitch and their touch gets a little bit heavier, and it gives the other lads, would say, a chance, the less classy lads like myself and yourself, a chance to actually do a bit of damage.
The ignorant pigs, like.
Yeah, something like that.
Do you know, I was at a match on Saturday in Bursley, Thurles Sarsfields against Nina Oak, and the weather was unbelievable. Like, the sun was splitting the stones. Then the following morning, I was actually watching the Tip Camogie Championship, Bursley against Clonolty Rossmore. Again, the weather was unbelievable. So is it just now all of a sudden going to turn? Is it lashing down there in Burr?
Yeah, no, I was lashing on my way down the country because we're just doing a bit of training tonight. We have a semi-final at the weekend. I was in Bettystown Beach on Saturday and it was glorious. By the time we got back home that night, it had turned significantly. And on my way to the Curry yesterday, I nearly stopped the car in the middle of the motorway. The rain was that bad. Like, it was proper thunderstorm. So it seems to be hitting the country at different times. But yeah, I'd say that's the last of the summer wine now somehow.
And was it Aidan O'Brien or is it Vincent O'Brien who had the 4,000 winner? I just don't follow it enough. I just hear the name.
Yeah, Aidan O'Brien had his 4,000 winner. He took over at Ballygunner, which is like the biggest racing probably stable in the world, from Vincent O'Brien, who is no relation. But 4,000 winners trained. He's 53 years old. The only others in Ireland that have 4,000 trained are Willie Mullins and Dermot Wells. Dermot Wells well into his 70s. Willie Mullins well into his 60s. So time is on Aidan O'Brien's side to probably go down as, the most successful and probably numbers-wise the greatest trainer probably in the history of world racing, I'd have to say, to be honest.
And is he the guy who has the dark shades?
Yeah, he wears dark shades at times, and he's always on the phone immediately after a race. And he has this amazing thing where his ability to remember names is phenomenal. So I've been down in Ballygunner, and they could have 60 horses working, and they'll all walk past and they all have a different work rider, and he'll say, all right, Shane, all right, Michael, all right, Johnny. He'll know every one of them by name. It's phenomenal to actually see it.
And actually, speaking of dark shades, I saw this picture on Team Talk Mag over the weekend, and look at that, playing with dark shades underneath the helmet. Thought that was quite something. Like, I've seen players wear glasses under the helmet before, but dark shades and all.
I always thought for a keeper in particular, on a really sunny day, like back in the day, what would they wear when there's no helmets? They'd wear the good peaked hat. What do you do on a real sunny day now? The helmet does not help you in any way. So I often thought back in the days there's some sort of a little extension or something like that you could put out your helmet or something. I don't know, but it's very, very awkward. I don't know what the scenario was there, but yeah, you always like to see something different being tried.
In American football, where they wear that black eye stuff under there, just because apparently that stops or helps with the glare that comes off spotlights or whatever, or floodlights in pitches. I wonder, does that work for natural light as well, or is it just floodlights? I'm not sure, but like, an interesting one to start CGA players doing that.
Yeah, speaking of the NFL, wasn't there an Irish guy was he the first Irish guy to play in the NFL since 1985 over the weekend? Dan
Whelan, I think.
Unbelievable, in fairness. And there's probably, like, I know they're doing various bits and pieces here, the odd time with GA players and things like that, because we're obviously very proficient kickers or whatever. So maybe you'll see more and more lads going over in time as well, but it's an amazing achievement for the man.
Yeah, but like, the amount of skill required for, like, whether you're like punters or whether you're a place kicker in the NFL is unbelievable. I think, like, from snap to kick, it's like 1.3 seconds. You have to get that kick off. So there's incredible time involved. It's not just, remember that whole thing about Ronan O'Gara, the whole rumor, which was a total rumor.
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah, he concocted it himself. He admitted as much in his book. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that he was going to go to the San Diego Chargers, which is what I think they were called at the time. But, that was all rubbish as well. But just because he's a good kicker, it doesn't necessarily mean that will translate to another sport. I know the balls are a similar shape and all that, but it doesn't necessarily mean it. And I don't know, did you hear Harry Kane, who's a big NFL fan? He was talking not so long ago about liking the idea when he finishes up football of going over and trying to be a kicker.
Go away. No, I hadn't heard that. I tell you, like when you think about a lot of the rugby lads, like they take a lot of time on their kicks. Like Johnny Wilkinson took an age at times. Thinking about GA players that potentially could make it. Like Cluxton puts down the ball, walks back and kicks the ball over the bar. There's no fuss whatsoever. Now, whether he'd be going over at this stage is fairly unlikely. But it definitely wouldn't suit everybody because the time between you reacting and actually kicking the ball, as you said, is so slow, and you still have to maintain your accuracy. So yeah, it's a bit of a fine art.
And if you mess up as well, you could get cut the next day. And like you mentioned, the rugby lads there, and a bit of a routine they'd have beforehand. I love Owen Farrell's one where he looks down at the ball and then he keeps it going there for a couple of minutes. But yeah, that's a nice little segue there.
The greatest run up was Charlie Redmond, because we used to do this at football training back.
Yeah.
We would have only been 8 or 9 at the time. Was it like 7 steps back and then like 3 or 4 to the left or something like that? And we'd be doing it at home, and you'd be counting it on the telly, and then going out to the garden and trying it or something like that. But it's kind of cool when a place kicker or a free taker or in hurling or football or whatever, that they have some sort of a routine that you can mimic almost, because it probably makes them more that you can go out to the garden and practice what they're doing. Whereas some of the free takers, there's nothing really to it. It's just kind of standard or whatever. Even Aaron Gallan's thing, he has like his baby finger on the hurl. It's kind of different, and it's not the norm of what you do for what most free takers would do anyway.
Yeah, actually, Jake Morris took one on Saturday for Nina. And like he does a thing where he starts off by holding up the hurley like a sword. And I'd say it's probably just to line it up, ball, post, turn, and then just goes off to the side and strikes it or whatever. I'm just wondering if people want to comment in who's got a very interesting free taking style, whatever sport it might be. Like David Beckham always had just a very, I don't know, it was just it was very distinctive run up. Even Ronaldo, the way he'd stand over it and keep the shoulders out as if, like he was a bouncer at a nightclub or whatever. Okay, let's start talking about GA. There's an awful lot going on, and there was a huge amount going on. Ballygunner against De La Salle in the county final in Waterford. That was live on TV. And look, De La Salle gave a very good performance early doors. Like I was watching this and I was very impressed with the physicality that they had early on. They were really wiring into Ballygunner. But Ballygunner were and continue to be just so impressive with the ball. And the thing to me is the mastery of the basic skills is better than almost anybody else in the country. Maybe you can throw up Ballyhale Shamrocks, and there's obviously a couple of others who are right up there. But when the ball goes to a player, how often do they miss first touch? It's almost never. So that's a credit to both the players and the training and the culture in the club as well. It's like just absolutely brilliant the way they do it. And a few times, like De La Salle, as I said, they wired into them. But like now and again, they'd knock the ball up the field, and a player would put the hurley to a ball that you could catch. It would spill away. There was one example, I can't remember exactly who it was, one of the inside forwards, and the ball spilled, cleared down the other end. Desi Hutchinson, like it does to all the players, stopped him, turn over the bar. Should have been a score one way, ends up being the other. And I think that's the thing with these teams. Like, if you make a mistake against Ballyhale, when you're moving the ball up the field, and obviously players are trying to run forward and support, you get turned over. That's when you're most vulnerable. And Ballyhale nearly always punish you. This is obviously when Ballyhale are at the top of their game, not when they're going through the group stages in Kilkenny, when they don't seem to ever perform that much recently. But yeah, that's just the thing about them. They just punish you so much, and surprise, surprise, 10th county title in a row.
Yeah, what you're saying about the kind of skill mastery, they just seem so comfortable in all those basics, really. It's like kind of, we've talked about Limerick down through the years as well, and probably Sean O'Donnell is the link between the two of them. The pass is always given in favour of the person that's receiving it. It's rarely a sloppy touch. It's rare that a move breaks down or anything like that. It's all those basics done really, really well. And that's just drilling every night. And as I said, they always look comfortable, even when under pressure at different times. And I thought it was even for Pádraig Matney's goal yesterday, like, you can kind of go blood and thunder or whatever, and Jake Dillon tried to kind of wire into him. It's just it's that little bit of kind of genius over his head, solos in, and like when they got the chance to bury De La Salle before the break, they took it. Like, the damage was done in that 7 or 8 minutes before half time. They smelled a bit of blood and they went straight for the throat. And yeah, like they look probably as good as ever. I thought it was interesting to hear Stephen O'Keefe talking after. He was asked about all the underage teams playing a similar style or whatever, and that they're ready to go and, you know, play senior then as a result. And he kind of says, I thought this was kind of pointed enough, like they don't have 6'5" players. They don't have 6'4". They don't have big giants like Limerick have. So you have to kind of play a bit of a kind of a different way. They play that possession game because and a running game because it suits the type of player that they have. Look at all the ball carriers they have. Look at all the pace that they have. So like you do, and this is one thing that annoys me about managers at different stages. A manager that comes in and brings his philosophy to this team, even if like if you have 6'4", if you have 2 or 3 6'4" lads in attack, you know, you work away to, you know, exploit them, I suppose, in attack. If you don't, you work away where you don't have to put long puck outs down. Do you know what I mean? And I just think they're really maxing out what they have. They don't have the big, like I always look at like some of the marquee forwards, like Joe Canning, Shamie Callan would say, TJ Reid as well. They're big physical players. It takes a certain type of player to mark them and keep them quiet. Do you know what I mean? You can't put a 5'8" guy on them. It just won't work. But Ballygunner don't have really any of those type of players. So they play a different way to exploit Desi Hutchinson, to make sure that he's getting ball in space and he's able to throw that lovely little fake that he throws, and the amount of people he gets to buy it as well. But they have it absolutely honed down to a T. I think it was 3 wides yesterday. When you're hitting the guts of 30 scores in a game and you're hitting 3 wides, like they're just so efficient in everything that they do.
Like with Desi Hutchinson, you've no choice but to get done by his step and his feint back the other way, because you have to run at 100% just to try and hopefully get a hook in or to keep goal side of him when he's going one way. So you have to go 100%. So when he stops, and obviously he knows he's going to stop before you do, and he takes that step, you're gone. Like, it's so hard to stop when you're running at 100%. Whereas, like, let's say Kyle Walker, if you're to talk about a perfect soccer example, who was able to stop Kylian Mbappe in the World Cup. Like, his running at 95 or 90% will probably keep into almost anyone in the world, which is why he's able to turn back the other way. Or Lillian Thuram, if you want to go back 20 years or whatever. Like, it's brilliant when you're that fast of a player. You're always kind of, you're never out of your control, like, because you never have to bomb absolutely 100% and commit yourself.
It's funny you say that, Shane, as well. Something that's not worked on enough in teams as well is acceleration is always worked on, but deceleration is as important. Like, I always thought that Andy Moore was probably the greatest GA player I've ever seen to decelerate. He decelerated so fast. And if his man was sprinting, like you were saying there, and he's able to put the brakes on real quick, the man has gone past him or whatever. But Desi's brilliant at it. And as you say, he's that step ahead. He knows that he's stopping. His man doesn't know that he's stopping, buys him a yard. And he's playing a kind of a different role with Ballygunner at times this year as well. Maybe out the pitch a little bit more, maybe creating a bit more, because they have Patrick Fitzgerald, who I have to say, he's so sweet, isn't he? Like, he's such a sweet ball striker. And he was quiet enough at stages yesterday, but he just looks like a really sweet player that you could potentially build a Waterford forward line around for the guts of a decade.
River Power says, Jez is the clean, angelic face on the Verney. Looks like he's going for the communion.
No, I tell you what, it was going racing yesterday, and I just felt like it was a bit of a bum kind of going, because I had a lot of just stuff kind of hanging off. And you sometimes you just feel a lot better when you clean yourself up a little.
And you didn't think about trimming the hair, no?
No, I didn't. No. That's in perfect working order.
Yeah, the old Lego helmet sitting on top of you there. Adrian McGrath says Hutchinson's goal in the semi-final came directly from players not tracking him when he ran right past him. There was no instinct to chase back. You won't see Ballygunner allowing that the other way. That's true. Clean shave for the kid, adds River Power. And I suppose the other end, Ruben Halloran, he was very good. Like, I mean, he's a physical specimen. He got himself 4 points from play and 8 more from placed balls. You don't really expect him to miss, actually, when he's over a free. Thomas Douglas got 4, produced a couple of nice bits of skill. Again,
that little flick was nice now. Yeah, that was nice. That was Mick Kavanagh, 09 All-Ireland final-esque, and a little flick through the legs then as well. It was a beautiful score. But it's just, De La Salle required those little bits of genius to get scores almost. Look how much harder they had to work to get a score than Ballygunner. Like, Ballygunner's, like, even that score that Tonto Douglas got, he was under pressure, short and grip, was probably lucky to get the strike away. Ballygunner weren't shooting in those type of scenarios. It was all on the front foot. It was all, you had time nearly to settle yourself for the shot. And as I said earlier, they were so efficient in front of the post.
Yeah, ML89 says Fernando Torres, by all accounts, was actually quite average pace, but had ridiculous ability to move between acceleration and deceleration. Was hard to deal with before he lost it with injuries. Do you know actually what I'd love to know what people think? And obviously this is a GA show, but I love talking about other sports as well. Fernando Torres went from Liverpool to Chelsea for 50 million, which was massive at the time to be average money these days. And he was a bit of a flop in terms of like he never produced the same scoring rate and never looked the same player. But he scored a goal in the Champions League semi-final, which ensured they got to the final, which they ultimately won against Bayern Munich.
That breakaway goal at the very end, was it?
Yeah, where Gary Neville was like, oh, you know. But I just wonder, does that mean he's not a flop because he had such a crucial moment in a big game which ensured Chelsea won a title they'd never won before?
I'd say probably, because like it's a lot of time. Just think about it, right? You could play in an All-Ireland final and be going poor, but you can have one big moment or one big play, and if you win, that's really all that anyone remembers.
Yeah.
You know, so Torres had a big hand in them winning the Champions League. That's probably all that anyone really remembers. You know what I mean?
Are Ballygunner favourites for the All-Ireland now?
Oh, I think so, yeah. You'd have to say they are. They have the break again before they play. I think it's the Cork champions in a Munster quarter final. They've negotiated the gap really, really well before. They'll probably take a couple of weeks off, go back and start building it up again. Are they better than when Ballyhale beat them in the All-Ireland semi-final earlier this year? Potentially. They ain't worse anyway, I'll put it to you that way. And you wonder, like, is the opposition as good? If Joey Holden's not around for Ballyhale, and if Colin Fennelly's maybe not around at the moment, and I think Adrian Mullen and Paddy Mullen were both missing at the weekend, they have a lot of newcomers in. Are Ballyhale as good? Will Ballyhale get out of Kilkenny this year? Will Thomas's get out? Will Thomas's get out of Galway? With David Burke missing, there could be a lot of new faces. Okay, that's fair enough. I don't know. I think
Thomas's again.
Again, David Connors did it last week. I'm going to do it here. I think Loughrea have a right good chance in Galway. I think Ballyhale might be taken down in Kilkenny too. Being honest with you, it's a bit of a one-man band with Owen Cody there at the minute. So I think there could be a lot of new provincial faces. Maybe Dunlight might come out of Ulster again if they can get out of Antrim. But I think there could be a lot of new faces on the block, and I think the betting market or whatever after the county championships could look a lot different than previous years. We might see a few new names, and even if we don't see new names, are those old names going as well as they were before? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, well, Richard Hogan says Fennelly is home, so I trust in that.
I wasn't playing, but by all accounts at the weekend.
Well, if he's home, right, I think Ballyhale will still find a way to win that county title because they've won 5 in a row now. I think they're like, when they're anywhere near full strength, I think teams fairly well fear them in Kilkenny, and they can say what they like, but I think they've always got that 4 or 5 point buffer, and if they're coming down last against a team that's pretty tight, they have that belief and that muscle memory to get over the line. Even at the weekend, as we'll talk about a little bit later on, what was it, 8 points they were behind on James Stephens?
9,
heading in towards injury time, and they still managed to get a result out of it. I don't know, I think they'll be hard bet, and then they'll probably come through Leinster, assuming that they get there that bit easier than Ballygunner will come through Munster. Now, I would still make Ballygunner favourites to win Munster, but you see...
You've played a lot of games there in 15 seconds, I'll tell you that. You've a lot of county championships won and lost in the last 10 seconds there.
Yeah, River Power says Ruben is some bit of stuff. What age is he? He was under 21 last year, or even under 20 last year, so he must be only around 20 years of age. And by the way, I just think, like, obviously Kevin Moran is some yoke to still be going, but it just didn't really work for him in the full forward line. And Barry Coughlin being stuck on top of a pacey player like Barry Coughlin, who's very good at spoiling lads as well. That was going to be very tough. Joe Butler says, by the way, Ballyhale were missing Adrian Paddy and Darren Mullen, along with others. Have to mention Peter Hogan. I thought from the get-go in the match against De La Salle, he just looked so sharp. And again, like you mentioned, well, I mentioned, I suppose, Ballygunner, the amount of players that they have that when the ball comes to them, it sticks every time. They're on the front foot. They play a nice ball to each other. Like Hogan, every time the ball came anywhere near him, his hand was just like a Venus flytrap. His finish for the goal was very good. Could have had one before that as well that he blasted over. I just think he's an excellent player. We didn't see too much of him for Watford last year. And Davy Fitz, who was down there's no way he would have missed how good Hogan was. And I'd see him having, assuming he's fit, a big role for Watford again next year.
Yeah, and Davey was bigging him up at half time as well, saying he was the best player on the field as well. There's a good few, like, people kind of bemoan the fact that there's not that many Ballygunner lads in with Waterford, but the few that are in there, like, you'd expect Kevin Mahoney to see more game time next year as well. Like, he was so dangerous at different times yesterday. You'd expect maybe Paddy Levy to see more time. He obviously played against Peter Hogan as well. Like, there's a lot of guys, they mightn't have, the Pádraig Mahoney's or the Philip Mahoney's or Stephen O'Keefe's involved or Barry Coughlin's, but they still have a hell of a lot to offer Waterford, with the likes of Peter Hogan and a few other lads like that. And yeah, he was brilliant yesterday. When he's given that sort of space or latitude to kind of do as he likes, he has to be kind of, the problem is that he has to be kind of shackled or whatever, but there was so many lads that had to be shackled yesterday that certain lads are going to fall through the cracks, and that was just the nature of it. Like, Desi was good, Patrick Fitzgerald was good, neither of them were unbelievable like they can be, and Ballygunner still put up the score that they did, and Peter Hogan and others did the damage.
Yeah, and Pádraig Mahoney, I definitely still do with him at county level. I'm sure Davy Fitz is sniffing around him, and maybe even Philip Mahoney. Probably feels like there's less of a chance of getting Philip because he's gone from it for maybe 3 years now. Whereas
no hope, I'd say.
Yeah, whereas Pádraig, maybe just 1 year, maybe he'd consider going back in again. But like, he's such a good player, who wouldn't want to have him in there? It's PWell74 says, saw Patrick's well in Kilmallock last Thursday evening. Really high standard that Ballygunner haven't played against this year. Not saying that they would beat Ballygunner, but more battle hardened. And the other thing actually is, as we talk about those Ballygunner players who are still at the peak of their powers, including Barry Coughlin, who would be great to have for that Waterford team as well. It just reminds me of the cooler thing as well that I was involved in, that a lot of the lads that were, mainstays or involved with the county team, they started to drift away from from the county scene and seem to be really happy with their life as club hurlers. Slightly less, and I mean they'd done nice stints at county level. Well, some of them were younger lads who just decided to play with the county only rather than with the club. And maybe there's an element to that in the Ballygunner thing as well, that you really are getting the fix that you want. You're training at a high level, you're doing things really well, you're achieving and all that kind of stuff. So maybe the county thing is like, you know what, life's quite good here. I've just spent the last 6 months playing club. I don't know if I want to go back in and spend 6 months with, another team trying to push to another level altogether and not have the same balance that I just had for the last 6 months.
100% that can happen. Plus, they've had the same management team for the last 5 or 6 years. They know all the players inside out. They know, like, Pádraig Mahoney's had like serious knee trouble and various injuries down through the years. They know how to manage him. If he only, I'm not saying he does this, but if he only needs to do 2 sessions a week, then the management know that and know that he's going to deliver, everything on match day. I don't know if Shane O'Sullivan still does every bit that the younger lads do. I think he does, actually. I think he said in an interview with you actually there, before the club series last year, that he pretty much does the same training. Like, but if he didn't, like, he's a good bit older. Like, he doesn't need to, and the management will, afford him that latitude. At county level, there's no latitude whatsoever. Like, I don't think there's hardly a county set up in the country, maybe bar TJ Reid. I don't know who else where you'd say, no, you don't have to do the same training as everybody else. Generally at county level. Yeah, maybe. We don't know the ins and outs of it, but maybe. But it's only for that really special player, and it's the exception to the rule. Whereas at club level, there's that bit more latitude, and they all know each other. Darragh Sullivan's a Ballygunner man. Like, do you know what I mean? He's seen Pádraig Mahoney or Shane O'Sullivan for the last 25 years playing. Do you know what I mean? He knows them inside out. And plus they know that, yeah, exactly, yeah. Plus they know that those boys that maybe are stepping away from county, they know they're going back into a setup that's as close you'll get as inter-county at club level. Like, the fact that, like, David Franks is there now as coach, he's going in with Wexford. They've Shawnee O'Donnell as well, who's inter-county, like the best in the business. Like, they don't want for anything at club level. So I'd say I don't see Pádraig Mahoney coming back once he's played very little county. You have to remember, Jesus, he's played very little county since 2019 when you think about it, really, between all the injuries and COVID and the cruise shit and that. So I wouldn't see him going back. And his performance against Napier last year was one of the best performances he's ever delivered. So I think they're all pretty happy with where they are, and they know that there's more boxes to tick with Ballygunner, I'd say, as well.
Yeah, the club needs a shake-up, says ML89. Feels like Napier, Thomas's, Ballyhale, Ballygunner, Schlockneil / Dunloy have been thereabouts for the guts of a decade at later stages for an All-Ireland. The other thing, though, is, like, I think clubs that are used to playing at a certain level, which would include a lot of those, there's almost an element of they get up to a level and they pull the ladder up after them, because the gap grows so much that, you know, a club that's trying to chase or really kind of bridge that gap, there's so many areas that you have to catch up. And I think it can be very, very difficult, especially if you don't have a massive pick in your club. If you don't, you know, you talked earlier about having the size profile of certain players. If you just happen to be a club that has, you know, a lot of small lads and you don't find the right balance in your team, or a lot of big lads and you don't find the right balance, when teams race off ahead, it can take a long time to get up to that level. And maybe for it to become competitive within the county, that top team has to drop rather than other teams being able to lift it sometimes.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, as I was chatting to Donal O'Rourke, who's involved with LSL yesterday, and he just said, like, it's like the high jump record. The bar is set. The bar is not going to be lowered at all. The bar is only getting higher. Do you know what I mean? And that's the way it is. And Adrian McGrath makes a good point here. Clare would definitely be an example of Brian Lohan maybe letting lads on individual programs at times. Like Shane O'Donnell is probably an exception to the rule as well, where he only really comes back and plays championship. I'd say Tony Kelly is managed well. I'd say John Conlon is kind of managed well as well. But they are the exceptions to the rule, and you have to have a fair amount of credit in the bank as well, like serious amount of credit in the bank to have earned that.
Yeah, and Adrian adds older, injury prone, whatever, in terms of like he's been asked by River Power, is it the older lads he's referring to? Richard Hogan, I should say, says great win for Ferrybank. And also Kev Kyo adds in Ferrybank to stop Ballygunner 11 in a row next year. What a win on Saturday, and an even better night to follow. So that was a victory over Capquin in the Premier Intermediate final. But Shane O'Sullivan now has 13 county titles, and there's a few lads there, the likes of Stephen O'Keefe, and is it also Philip Mahoney? No, it wouldn't have been, because he got an injury at some stage for one of the years. But a couple of players have won in all 10 of those. Shane O'Sullivan has won 13 county titles. And I was kind of racking my brains before we started the show. Who's had more than that? And viewers, please get your comments in and let us know who's had more county title wins than that. But Paul Hearty is one that jumped out straight away. So he's the Crossmaglen Rangers longtime goalkeeper. He's now retired. Armagh as well. 19 Armagh titles, 11 Ulster titles, 6 All-Ireland clubs. So that's 36 titles. But if you want to just keep it to county titles only, tell us. But if you want to include provincial and All-Ireland, also let us know. Kevin Heffernan, former, Heffo's Army and so on. Before that, as a player, 21 Dublin club championships, 15 football and 6 hurling, all with St. Vincent.
Do you feel like because of his managerial achievements that's often forgotten?
Well, same with Mick O'Dwyer.
Yeah. Brilliant. So Mick, by all accounts, if you chat anyone down in Kerry, they'd say was Mick Footballer of the Year kind of before it was properly introduced? I think he was in the 60s.
He was Footballer of the Year when he was manager. So I think they just decided to name him Footballer of the Year, even though he wasn't playing for whatever reason, because they went so well. Let me just look that up, but go ahead and finish off whatever.
Yeah, I just feel like Kevin Heffernan's achievements as a manager, you probably forget what he achieves. It's probably somewhat similar to Brian Cody, the fact that he managed, or he captain Kilkenny to an All-Ireland win as well, but because his managerial achievements are so big or whatever, you kind of forget, you kind of don't talk about his playing achievements as much, but some other good ones as well. Mick Mackey, obviously, probably Limerick's all-time greatest player, even though there's a few lads probably chasing down at the moment. He has 15 Limerick hurling titles and 5 football. I think there's even, isn't it great, with Heffo as well, who has 21 Dublin championships, 15 football and 6 hurling. If you can throw 2 codes into it as well, the fact that you were doing it at both codes is outstanding. And there's a good one here. Joe Henry who Joe Butler, I'm sure, will know of. He said he has 23 Mayo senior hurling titles with Turin and 1 Mayo senior football title with Shamrocks in 1977, which he believes is a national record. He's 3 Railway Cups as well, 2 National League hurling titles, and was also part of 2 All-Star trips to America in the 70s. If there's any other, I know someone has up, Kev Kyo has Ballymacarbie ladies on 42 in a row county titles in Waterford. A few of those ladies must have a right collection. Yeah, I'd say there's some well into their mid-20s as well. Keep all your suggestions coming, because it's funny, there might be county titles or obscure ones that maybe we're overlooking, but we'd love to know who's on the highest roll of honour for county titles in the country.
Yeah, I can't find out. Do you remember who the name of the sponsor of the footballer, of the player of the year before Texaco?
No, I do. If you said it, I'd know it straight away, but I can't think of it offhand here at the moment.
I'll see if any of our viewers can before I throw in the answer. Paul Mooney says Christy Ring had 14 county titles. Richard Hogan suggests that TJ must have double-digit county titles.
11, I think, yeah. 11 and does he have? What has he got? 5, 6 All Irelands as well. Him, Owen Reid, Mark Aylward.
Colin Fennelly, even though he would have been a sub at the very start.
They all have. I think there might be one more. Is there? They all have a ridiculous haul of club medals.
Ballymacarbery ladies on 42 in a row in Waterford. A few of those ladies must have a right collection. Cora Staunton with Carna Con. Didn't they win something like 23 in a row, 24?
Yeah, I think she has the guts of them all, I think, as well.
Yeah, didn't Conlon do his back prior to the semi-final in 2022 doing weights at home? As I was looking up the Mick O'Dwyer stuff, did you read out some of the other players who have all?
Yeah, no, I did. I went through Mick Mackey and Joe Henry, Kevin Heffernan, etc. Yeah.
Okay, so like we said already, Ferrybank, they beat Cappoquin 222 to 114 in the Waterford Premier Intermediate Final. 114 from Mark O'Brien was crucial there. Portlaw were beaten by Bricky Rangers in the Intermediate Final as well. Junior
just on Mark O'Brien really quickly. So there was a good line from the captain, the Ferrybank captain. He's Robbie Carew. He just said about Mark O'Brien. He pulled his hamstring, so he's in ice chambers up in Thurles all week. That man doesn't stop working. We'll go off on the beer for a couple of weeks, but MOB won't. He'll go working harder. So just to score 114 and be a doubt with a hamstring injury is some going too.
Yeah, Seamus Keaton scored 112, 1-2 that from play as Ardmore beat Roanmore in the Junior A final as well. Former county minor James Flavin hit 1-1. The Tipperary County Championship, that's really starting to bubble to life nicely now. We know what the quarterfinals are going to be. There was preliminary quarterfinals at the weekend that saw Thurles and Clonoulty Rossmore gain victories there. We'll come back to that in a second. But the quarterfinals now, Friday, and I actually like that these are split up over 3 nights. I think you can really sort of and I want this at county as well, where you've a Friday fixture, you've got something on Saturday, something on Sunday. Nearly half the week then you do have fixtures on. I think that would be a really nice way to get maximum value out of our fixtures. But anyway, Friday, Killadangan against Holy Cross Ballycahill. That's going to be a 7:15 at Semple Stadium. That's where all the games are going to be on. On the Saturday, Lockmore Castellini will meet Rossgray. And then on the Sunday, you have a double header of Toomevara against Clonoulty Rossmore. Somebody's going to have to change their jerseys there. And Drummond Inch against Thurles Sarsfield's Battle of the Mid. I think that's a pretty tasty fixture. Any fixtures stand out more than others?
No, obviously we'll go through the results and stuff from the weekend, but I'd say there's a good opportunity for Toom there against Clonoulty Rossmore. They only scraped over Mullinahone at the weekend. Drummond Thurles is a belter of a game though. It's a belter of a game. Thurles coming in after getting a bit of a monkey off their back against Nina, and Drum obviously have showed great form through the group stages as well. There's something in all of the games as well, you'd have to say. There's a little bit of tastiness in all 4 of the quarterfinals.
Yeah, Kieran McBreen says, was it the Cook-Cullen Awards before the All-Stars? It was, but in terms of the player of the year, it was the Caltex player of the year.
I actually remember you saying it before. Yeah, what was Caltex again?
Don't know.
Lovely.
Let me look it up. Petroleum brand. So
very good.
That ended up becoming Texaco.
Petroleum. I immediately think of the old Vaseline on the thing, but no, we're talking about petrol stations and stuff like that. A little bit different, I'd say. Petrochemicals.
Well, you can put Vaseline in a load of different areas now of Ireland, but you put it over the ice.
No. Never, no. I've never done that. No, I never find it sweats down into my eyes, to be honest with you. But
you see, that's because you've got massive bushy eyebrows. See, I'm not as well endowed in the eyebrow area.
You're not as well endowed in many areas, pal.
Okay, Emil89 says recent times some outlet lads would have had a load. Kieran Fitzgerald and Cara Finn lads, TJ and Colin Fennelly must have a load. Older Thurles lads, the Piershig, Thomases, etc., they'd all be close to going to double digits. Yeah,
Kieran Fitzgerald definitely has a right haul. Before he retired, he had a serious haul.
Yeah, ridiculous haul. So the matches over the weekend. Maybe you want to ask me about Nina Airog and Thurles Sarsfields. It was 127 to 123. I was at this game. So throw any old question you have at me about the game.
Well, I see a note in our doc in our research doc under Nina that says they played like gentlemen. So you might have to expand on that.
Okay, so I was at the match in Borrisoleigh, and I was watching it with a couple of people I knew, including the mother and brother. And the mother would have a fairly keen eye when she's watching the GA. She has a nice little way of summing things up. And she just said midway through the second half, at this stage, Nina had gone 7 points ahead, hadn't really rose a gallop, hadn't really put in any massive hits, never looked like winning the game. And the mother said, Nina are playing like gentlemen. And, is there a bigger insult?
No, probably not. I see lads playing hurling sometimes like they play tennis, and that's not a compliment either, because it's real nice, and and you're trying to do this and that, and like at the end of the day, in the cut and thrust of a championship game, you can have all your touches, and we say Ballygunner have all the touches and their stick work is unbelievable or whatever, but like they will take no prisoners. If you're coming through, they will do whatever they have to do. And that little cynical edge that we maybe questioned before, from the Lockmore game onwards a couple of years ago, they've definitely brought that to the table. So like, no, it's a fair insult. I think your mother said to you before when you went hurling initially that the one thing she didn't want it to be was not to be windy. So that's yeah.
Don't care if you're good, bad, just don't be windy. And I mean, that's the mother saying. That's not the father saying it now. Is that toxic femininity coming in there?
But just on Nina, like, just for whatever reason, they're kind of just so hit and miss at different times. Like when they light it up, they look like county champions elect. When they play like they did at times the other night, they look very, very average. I believe they came with a bit of a run, did they, near the end, and like frightened Thurles or whatever, but Thurles were the better team by all accounts on the balance of play.
Like, it was more that Thurles started to fall asleep a small bit. Like, I'll just tell you the players who did really well for Thurles, that, for my money. I thought Dennis Maher was very solid in the full back line. Rona Maher was dropping back, and Nina kind of made a hero of him. Like the ball that they were hoisting up for Jake Morris, like high hanging ball, and Paul Maher, who wasn't named to start, he played on Jake Morris, and he did really well to spoil the ball. And actually, he has a lot of pace as well. And he was like, Jake still ended up scoring 4 points from play, but it was still a good performance from Paul Maher. But the amount of times that high hanging ball was just thrown in, that all you have to do as a back is just get your hurley up spoil and nudge the man as well, and he did that really well. So I thought he was excellent. I thought also that Billy McCarthy was really good. He scored 1-2. I think he got a point very early in the game.
There's hardly a player in the country that people would like to see going well more than Billy McCarthy after what he's been through injury-wise.
Yeah, absolutely awful time with the Cruciates. But those lads all played really well. Purcell as well. So what's his name? Is it Eddie Purcell? Michael Purcell, I think, as well, played quite well. Like, they had a lot of very good performances. Paddy Creedon didn't come on as well. I think there might have been a little discipline thing there. So to actually, for Paddy Maher to be able to, manage the team to victory and make a point as well to his panel was really good. Shawnee Butler started, he did fine.
Great picture of Paddy going mental on the sideline, like jumping up or whatever. Like it's mad. It's so sad that he's not still playing at club level, but he's gone straight into management or whatever. And great to see them doing well, just for him personally as much as anything else.
Yeah, it was actually Owen Purcell who scored 3 points. Michael scored the one. I just got a little confused for a second. But like at the start of the county group, they were battered out the gate by Killadangan. And like they'd won the mid, that was all fine. But the first game, they got a great start, got a goal early doors, but they were terrible for the rest of the game. And there would have been question marks. People would have been scratching their head at that stage, wondering where's the team going to go. But now they look as well primed as anyone. But just to talk about Nina, irrespective, like, I'm not actually trying to slate them by saying playing like gentlemen, but that kind of was it. They were like, against Mullinahone, they got 3 lads sent off, but 3 lads kind of pointlessly sent off, just like late little hits or schnigs or whatever, but like without making a mark on the game at the same time. So all 3 of those were suspended, and Tommy Heflin would have certainly been a loss from the start. Ben West had been very good coming on in games, so he would have been a loss. Keane O'Farrell as well, who I wouldn't have seen too much of, if I call a spade a spade. But they definitely were missing something there. Now, Michael Heffernan had been injured, came back in, hit some lovely scores, got 4 from play, and got himself 5 free. So he was very good. He hit the ground running coming back. Jake Morris, as I said, he got 4 from play. The rest of them didn't really do enough. Sam O'Farrell being the exception. You might remember him being the minor captain against Offaly in the All-Ireland.
Was he wing back?
He was number 4, and he was like, he scored 1-1. So he seemed to be around different areas, but he was out the field anyway, was my take on it. Someone else might clarify where they thought he was. But he was really good. And Michael Heffernan was quite good. And 1 or 2 other lads like Paddy Murphy, who I thought he was he was playing the half back line really good. Josh Keller, he could try to run at them. He was okay. Keane Crowley, he was okay. But the trouble I had was, like, Barry Heffernan, he's still not back up to 100%. And I had this debate with either, was it yourself or Shane Brophy on Tipcast last week, about how, because he had played in the half back line against Mullinahone, having previously played in the half forward line, I'd be just inclined to leave him in the half back line. Now, we all get it with club teams. you're mixing and matching and trying to get a bit of size in the forward line. So you can see the temptation to put him up there. But he's not long back from the cruciate. He's probably not playing his best stuff just yet. So you're putting him out of position as well as him not being totally back up to speed. Whereas if you played him in the half back line and throw Paddy Murphy, who's played in the forwards an awful lot over the years, throw him up there. And I think as well, Heffernan, he might have had a bit of double vision or something like that, because going up under the high balls, he never caught one, he never won one, he never got in the game. And you know how much I've praised him in the last couple of years and how big of a loss I said he was for Tip this year. They would have, for my money, been better off having him in the half back line and throw Paddy Murphy up the field. They needed a physical presence. He was playing well, he was snapping ball.
When you're coming back from an injury, the one thing you want, because a lot of things are unfamiliar when you come back from a big injury, you want that familiarity. He knows how to play 6 or he knows how to play 5. You could have got a hell of a lot out of him, even at wing back, at different stage, or even midfield. But to put him somewhere alien, like up front, up in the half-hour line, I don't know if it's the wisest use of him, shall we say. And now I'm just thinking as well, how sick Jake Morris must be after playing brilliant throughout the North, and they won a North title, and he was injured, and he got back for one game, and now is, off for a couple of months or whatever. He would have been hoping to get on a run and potentially try and get into the, semi-final or county final, and now he's, off for 2 months or whatever.
Yeah, and they left him inside in the 2v1 and sometimes 3v1 situation and pumping in 50-50 at best ball. I was thinking, okay, right, in some respects, if you're going to work the ball up the field, like that Jake's going to be outnumbered inside, then work the ball up a little bit. Again, another reason to have Barry Heffernan playing deeper, so that because Thurles aren't pushing out those players, that you'll try and punish them further up the field where, you've got the numbers. So even from that point of view, like, would you not look at, like, when it's not working, move Jake Morris out to maybe centre forward, but my personal preference would be wing forward, because if he's in centre forward, he's probably going to be in traffic all the time. Whereas if he's out in the wing and Ronan Maher wants to go over to that side to sort of double up a little bit, okay, there's space at the other side and maybe in the inside forward line, maybe put Philip Hickey, who was very quiet, in there. And at least generally Jake's going to end up being able to turn one-on-one at his man on the wing. I just felt it was just a bit too predictable, and the only reason that Nina made a comeback is just Thurles started hitting cruel wide after wide midway through the second half. But Thurles are true, and you know what, victories like they've had in the last couple of weeks should really stand to them. You'd expect more out of the likes of Aidan McCormick in the coming weeks. Stephen Cahill will probably be a bit more influential. Shawnee Butler scored 4 points, very good. James Armstrong looks good. So a lot of positives there, and they're also going to be joined by Clonalty Rossmore, who had a nice victory.
Yeah, they had a 3-point victory over Mullinahone. I think it was a real kind of fast start. They scored 6 points without reply at the start. That was kind of the platform for their victory. So for the record here, so unless are they back in a relegation fight unless they win the county title? So if they're beaten, they go back into like a relegation semi-final, and that's with who? That's with 3 other very good teams as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's JK Bracken's. Oh, damn it. Yeah, you had me.
Sorry, I landed you in it here. But they're basically, the one thing about it is for Clonalty, and if they can stay going, and even if they don't win the county title, at least they're going into that relegation scenario, having played lots more competitive games probably than the others that they're going to be playing, if you get me.
It'd be some zicker, though, having to both go in and, get stuck into a relegation clash after, let's say they get to a county semi-final or something like that you'd have pushed so far to get that far. And then all of a sudden you have to go and play a relegation game, and maybe other teams have had a chance to get everyone right, and you're picking up more and more injuries as you go along.
Yeah, yes and no. I don't. Depends how they if they don't win the county title. It partly depends on how they exit the championship. Is it a deflating victory, or is it a real battle, a real battle against someone where they just were outclassed or something like that? But there's some incentive, even more incentive than ever, to win a county title. Now I think it's unlikely realistically. But you never have more of an incentive, lads. If we win a county title, not only do we get our hands in the damn bream, but we don't have to. We avoid that relegation quagmire as well.
Yeah, and head into Munster instead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Adrian McGrath says, how could you pick a player struggling under the high ball in your half back line? And well, look, I mean, I'm not entire. I didn't speak to him, but in terms of like whether there's a bit of blurred vision or something like that, but I think he's more likely to get on ball in his natural position if he's struggling one way or another. Certainly in the forwards, if your touch isn't right or you're not getting the ball up first time and you're outnumbered, you're going to be under awful pressure. First touch, second hand says, Nina are the ultimate microcosm of the Tip County team. Electric on their day, but so flaky and inconsistent when it comes to a dogfight.
Wow.
Where are you from? Where are you from?
I had read that comment before, and I didn't think you'd read it. We're vetting as we go here, but I don't necessarily agree with the flaky, inconsistent maybe. But when Tipper going well, I think Tipper a force, and it's been proven most years, like 16, 19 or whatever, and they're going well. But when they're going bad, like in 12 or like in 21 or 22 even, they're going very bad.
But like, okay, so you mentioned 2019 here. Is that the year where Tip got absolutely annihilated in the Munster final, went down to 14 men against Wexford and still showed what metal is all about? That's Tipperary, is it? They were struggling that year.
But I was actually... they went well in the round robin in Munster that year, to be fair.
They got it opened up by Limerick.
Hold on a second. That was one game against the best team in the country. It wasn't like they could go back and say, oh, they were brutal in this game as well and that game as well. They weren't going bad.
Were they good against Laois in the quarterfinal?
They took care of them by double digits sitting there.
For a finish, but not great. Not great.
But what I'm saying is they've been going well before that. In 19, the league was okay. Then they had a right good game against Cork near the end of the league, and then they were brilliant throughout the Munster round robin. You know they were. They were paced in the Munster final, but it's not like what I'm more talking about is in 2022. Tip were going bad from the start, and they continued to get worse and worse and worse. That's more what I mean. When they're going well, they're generally a force and can win All Ireland. When they're not going well, they can lose all 5 games in Munster like they did last year.
And previous year, yeah. Porter says Tip beat Kilkenny in 3 dogfight All Irelands. Apparently Kilkenny never gave up, but they keep doing it against Tipperary.
But I'm not sure what you're talking about here. We're talking about Tipperary. I'm going back to a comment
these
here.
are supposed to be dogfights. Like Kilkenny always say, look, when it's a close All Ireland final, Kilkenny will beat Tip, but they're all close until one team starts pulling away.
Do they say that? I don't know. Do they?
They do.
Indeed, they do.
Anyway, on to that other preliminary quarterfinal. Clonolty beat Mullinahone 123 to 120. Kyle Burke, he scored 8 points, 4 of those frees. Conor Hammersley, who's not that long back, and he was quite impressive as the game went on against Kildangan the last day out. He hit 1-3, including 1 goal from a very narrow angle. Owen Kelly was coming out to contest the ball that was in a ruck situation, a little bit out from his goal, spilled out. Conor Hammersley buried it lovely, but Owen Kelly was probably a bit too kind of keen to get involved in the play.
Yeah,
open.
He might have been trying to do too much hurling. If you get me, that can happen at times as well. Like, and it's often a defender's it's the worst thing some defenders can do is that they're really trying to hurl it forward and they're trying to hurl too much ball and be too influential, and then their man hits them for 1-3 or something like that.
Yeah, and I was wrong with my predictions for Tipperary over the weekend. I thought Nina, and I gave myself all sort of asterisks if Mikey Heffernan and if Jake Morris come back and hit the ground running. Well, they did, and they still lost. So yeah, I was totally wrong there. And I said that I thought.
Hey, listen, as Homer famously said to Bart, you tried your best, but you failed miserably. The lesson is never try.
Yeah. Was the draw against Limerick this year a dogfight?
I'd say it was, yeah.
Yeah. And yet,
but I think Tipperary were going all right this year. So, like, in generally, like, Tip's form was decent this year. The wheels just came off against Waterford, and then they were brutal against Galway. But I think they've generally been good throughout the year. League, the whole way through Munster as well. I'm more talking about, you can generally see it when Tipper not going well throughout the year. They don't really turn things around. It's either they're going well or they're not going well, one or the other.
And in the match in between the Waterford and Galway defeats, how did they
where they beat the Joe McDonough runners-up, who won't even be in the championship next year.
By the way, in the junior hurling in Tipperary, Clonmel captured their first South Tip Junior A title, defeating Moyle Rovers 6-13 to 3-7. The Clare Championship is unbelievably interesting at the moment because every team left in it is looking to end the famine. Now, I'll read out the teams that are left, and then you might go through all the teams that are no longer involved in the Senior A competition now going forward. So the 4 teams that have gotten through seeded are Scariff, Clonlara, Newmarket and Fecal. So Newmarket in 2012 is the most recent of the contenders, with Clooney, who I'm going to mention now as a second seed. They've got the longest famine of the other teams left. 1942 was their last one. So the second seeds are Kilmaley, Crusheen, Clooney Quinn and Aero. So it makes it a very, very tasty competition. You might go through, like there was Kilmaley 21 points, Scariff 118 in recent days there, but you might go through the teams that are out of the Senior A Championship.
Yeah, there's a hell of a lot of new names there, isn't there? Like, really, like when you think about it, even Clooney Quinn without Ryan Taylor doing very well, you'd have to say, like Éire Óg would be hoping to really push on now at this stage, because when you go down through who's not there, so just we go fly down through really quick. So go back through, would say from 2022 to 2013. 6 Mile Bridge won it in 13, gone. Cratloe won it in 14, gone. The Bridge again in 15, gone. Ballyea in 16 won it, gone. Bridge won it in 17, gone. Ballyea, Cratloe in 18 and 9, and Cratloe were beaten in 19 by the Bridge. All 4 of those are gone. The Bridge beat O'Callaghan's Mills in 20. The Bridge are gone. Ballyea and Ina Kilnamona in 2021 final. Both of them are gone. And Ballyea were in last year's fight, won last year's final as well, and they're gone. Like, so it's just like the big hitters for the last decade in Clare are all gone. And I think I think I might have made a mistake in a previous show. There's a couple from Newmarket have county medals, Colin Ryan and maybe 1 or 2 more. Clonlara, John Conlon, and maybe 1 or 2 more might have it from 2008, I think. And then there might be a couple with Crusheen from when they won in 10 and 11 that have county medals. Well, I would say that of what's left in the championship, no more than 6 to 8 players probably have a Clare Senior Hurling Championship medal. And at the last 8 stage, like that's probably unheard of in a lot of counties. Like, very, very rare for that to happen.
Like, everyone there must think at the moment there's a county title there for us.
Oh yeah, big
like,
time.
They absolutely are. Actually, and I'd say this back to 2012 as well. That time we knocked Ballyboden out in the last group game. It was kind of a de facto knockout game, and they'd won the 5 in a row. Everyone was all of a sudden thinking, hey, it's on. Now, we didn't end up winning it, but you are thinking, hey, it's on. So I think every team should be at this stage, and it makes it very exciting. And anybody who's watching their Clare stuff, let us know who's going to be winning it from here. And Adrian McGrath, of course, regular commenter there, Scariff man, let us know. Are Scariff going to get it done? Look at the forwards you have. Your Mark Rogers is your Patrick Crotty. There's a lot of quality there.
Well, it looks like it's, as you said, it's a sort of championship that any team could win. And I wonder then, will Éire Óg start feeling the pressure a small bit? Because all of a sudden, there's the pressure of not having won a county title in a while, but now there's the pressure of being favourites from the last 8 stage. And they're probably favourites going into last year's county final-ish, and maybe haven't dealt with that tag that well. So the door is ajar for a hell of a lot of teams to try and push it through. It's going to be very interesting. Like Fecal were only intermediate champions a couple of years ago. Like Scariff, like, haven't been in around this stage in a long time at senior level. So very, very interesting.
So the Limerick County Championship, Kilmallock are the one team so far that are through to the semi-finals. It appears you're probably going to join them there, depending on how the last game goes. But Kilmallock against Patrickswell was a bit of a cracker there the other evening, 222 to 220. And Diarmaid Burns had a penalty late on, which he blasted over the bar. It just whizzed over the bar. That would have leveled the game up, or we could have ended up with a draw if that had to go in. But Kilmallock keep getting it done.
Just on that, like, you kind of would half wonder why Galan wasn't hitting the penalty, probably, wouldn't you? Like, I know Burns is a brilliant.
If you had to give me a pick between the two of them, and commenters let us, or viewers let us know, I'd take Burns out of the two.
Do you know what's interesting is that Galan is probably going to be hurler of the year. But I think it's fair to say that he was taking off frees at different stages in this year's championship, which is mad. And his stuff from play was still that good. Like, he was. Burns came up to the 45 to hit frees this year, probably because of potentially a lack of confidence in some of Galan's dead ball striking. Now, by the end of the championship, his dead ball striking was brilliant. But it's just an interesting one that his displays from play were still able to get probably the highest level they've ever been, despite your confidence could easily be eroded away, having missed some frees that he normally would score. That's what I'm saying.
Well, look, no more than myself with the Coola Juniors last week. I don't want to be known as a glorified free taker either. For anyone who missed the show last week.
Hey, lad, the only thing you'll ever be known as is a glorified gobshite. That's about it.
But Kilmallock do seem like they're absolutely humming. Micheál Houlihan scored 7 points in that game. 5 of those were frees. Oisin O'Reilly won 3.
He got a lot of space, Shane, near the end of the game. O'Reilly banged over some great scores, and you were going to mention Shane O'Brien there. Shane O'Brien's he's coming. He is coming for the inter-county scene and to make a big mark very, very soon. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if next year we're going to see him a lot more. It's going to be like Cottle O'Neill, basically. They blooded him this year. he hardly saw a minute of championship action this year. He'll see a nice bit of championship action next year. Then he'll probably be starting the year after. But like, he's a wrecking ball. For a young fella now, he is a wrecking ball.
Well, like, scored 5 points, also caught a brilliant late ball to feed Graham Mulcahy for a goal, which put them ahead.
Yeah.
That was a brilliant finish by Mulcahy. Isn't it gas? Like 3 or 4 years ago, people were talking about him being finished, and he's still getting it done in terms of has big involvement with Limerick in their championship teams, is still getting it done for the club. Like, fair play to him. He's just keeping it going.
Yeah. Like, after 2021, you're kind of thinking, like, with Peter Casey was injured and Keane Lynch was injured, Mulcahy was starting, and you're kind of thinking, are his legs on the way in a small bit here? Is he still going to make the same impact? And he still came on and had some big plays and big games this year against Tipperary. Didn't he get a couple of points when he came in to kind of level, or he could have set up someone for a goal there near the end, I remember, if they'd went for the throw. But he's still contributing handsomely, and I don't know, like, would you even consider in any way walking away what you're walking away from? Do you know what I mean? He's still contributing handsomely. Forget age or anything like that. He's still contributing to one of the greatest squads in hurling's history. So not in a month of Sundays would you be walking away anytime soon.
As long as his lifestyle permits it, why not? By the way, there was a couple of comments on Twitter, X, I should say, on X, from, and this is in terms of like the amount of county titles that people have won. Tomas McCarthy from WLR-FM and Waterford News and Star says Michelle Ryan has 24 county medals with the Ballymacarbery ladies. That series going. And TK says Leighton Glynn Wicklow, between football and hurling, he has 22 senior medals. Also, a few of them road lads in Offaly are up around 13, I think. And might as well mention it while we're talking about road. They're gone. First time since 2011 they're not in the county final, is it?
Yeah, mad, because Alan McNamee is third on the Offaly Senior Football Roll of Honour by himself, if you get me. I think he's the 13, I think. But they were beaten at the weekend. They were beaten after extra time by Forban. A belter of a game from the few bits that I heard, and I was listening to a few bits after as well. But they're gone, and we're going to have new champions. Tullamore beat Edenderry by a point yesterday. Bit of a cracker of a game as well. So it's a Tullamore Forban final. Tullamore beat Forban on penalties last year, and I know that was a sickener for Forban to take. So yeah, that should be a cracker of a final. But Tullamore have reacted really well to losing their captain and their talisman Johnny Maloney, who's playing with Mike Cullen now. And obviously they have Cormac Egan back fit, which is massive. Very difficult game to call. I kind of said on the Thursday show that I thought Forban could produce a big result. Whether they can go and produce another big result and win a final. I think they beat Road in 19. Yeah, that's a difficult game to call. Very, very difficult game to call. Anton Sullivan missed a penalty, or had a penalty saved for Road against Forban, and that was a big turning point. And
again, there's another county title where everyone will be thinking this could be our year, the way, Road gone now. But just back to Patrick's well. Any team that has, and Keane Lynch again, class goal, he's just continuing to produce it. And I suppose it's great for him. Like, he's finally back from injury and getting a good run at it now. He must be loving life. But any club team that has Diarmuid Burns in the half back line, Keane Lynch midfielder, wherever you want to play him, and Aaron Galland, they need to be kind of thinking, racking up county titles. And I know the competition is very stiff in Limerick, but like, there can't be too many club teams around Ireland who have that spine of a team there.
Yeah.
If you get any level of player around them, and no doubt that they are trying to do that, but you'd be thinking this team should really be kicking on.
Yeah, throw Kevin O'Brien and Jason Gallan into that as well, and a couple more lads who have exposure at senior inter-county level, or even, Fitzgibbon Cup level and under 20 level as well. But that was one of the best games I've seen in a while. That was one of the best club games I've seen in a long, long time now. I have to say, the standard was outrageously high. And a lot of the big players came to the fore. For the well, like, I honestly think it's going to be just between probably the Well, Kilmallock and the Piercig, and it could be a score either way on any given day, really, to be honest with you. And I definitely wouldn't be ruling the Well out. They're right there, especially they've all their big names playing well. And Lynch looks, with, like, as every week passes by and he gets more and more games, he just, like, as I don't know, was it you or someone had it, that like he actually accelerated into the ball for that goal that he got. Like, he was going top speed into the ball. He looks like he's like moving almost perfectly again, which is a great sign for Limerick for next year. It might be a great sign for everybody else. But they've all their big men going well. And yeah, I think it's between those three in Limerick. And as I said, I don't know if you could confidently call it at this stage, really, because it could be a score either way on a given day.
Yeah, and was it Patrick Kirby who kicked that point over the bar? Was that last week against the Hand?
Some score, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the Hand. One Trick Pony says, as a Limerick fan, don't want to see any of the Limerick clubs going far this year. Isn't that often the way that you hear that? Like,
yeah, I lads, Kilkenny lads always said that about Ballyhale as well. Because if you looked at, particularly in Henry's career, it does take a toll towards when it gets to the real important part of the county stage. If you've been going the whole time and you haven't had much of a break, and I'm sure the Limerick lads will be the same as well. And we talk about Ballygunner being All-Ireland favourites. Like, Na Piarsaigh gave them lots of it for long stages last year before maybe fading a small bit. And that'd be a tasty game if you were to see it again.
Yeah, no, and I could be wrong about this, but would Darren Mullen have established himself more with Kilkenny at the moment if he didn't keep? I mean, to me, he just seems to keep picking up injuries playing for the club in their extended seasons.
Yeah, maybe so. He's not even playing with Ballyhale at the moment, and I don't know if he's going to be back. The talk is that he's not going to be back. But yeah, he's an unfortunate one now because he definitely has the potential to be a regular for Kilkenny, but he doesn't seem to have had much luck with injury at club or county level, to be honest with you.
Yeah, a Hand, they lost to Patrickswell 113 to 121, and Na Piarsaigh finished with 8 of the last 9 scores. That's their third win in a row. A Hand's goal came from Ronan Fox, and just like they did the last day out against Patrickswell, a Hand are producing good performances here, but it's just not. Was it you know, the game where the scoreline was inaccurate and both teams got onto the referee who insisted it was right, and there was a bit of kerfuffle. I'm trying to remember, was that against Kilmallock?
No, it was against the Well, yeah.
The Well, yeah. Jeez, it's hard to keep track with all the different games there. But a Hand have performed quite well throughout this championship, with just 1 win from 4, as far as my money tells me. Then also in Group 2, Round 4, Ballybrown beat Gary Spillane. What's the nickname of Gary Spillane? We've come up with it before.
The Bouncers.
Yeah.
Great name, in fairness. You have the Bouncers and then you have the Ballback with Kilmallock.
Yeah, what's the best club nickname? I think the Greyhounds with Toomey Vara isn't bad.
The Greyhounds is a good one, yeah.
Clock of the North for Bursley.
Yeah, I don't know, that randomly came into my head the other day about the whole cock thing and getting them into Crow Park and that kind of. I just that was brilliant. Club nicknames. Yeah, I don't think there's any. There's not really one on board, I think. Don't think there's too many of them in Offaly either, to be honest with you. Road is the village, not very unique or anything like that. Tullamore is the town. Maybe we lack imagination in that respect. I don't think there's any unbelievable names. You kind of caught me off guard, but I don't think there's any unbelievable nicknames in Offaly.
Any team that's black and white hoops is generally called the Magpies.
Yeah, Clare Castle. Yeah, Clare
Are
Castle.
Are called Magpies as well?
I think they might be. Yeah, the sash would be a good one in Drumcullen, but it's not that original. Drumcullen and Offaly, it's a kind of blue jersey with a red sash going across it. Yeah, the seatbelts or the sash. The seatbelts is not taken that well though.
No, I can't imagine it is. Best club name in Ireland probably has to be Lovers Walk.
Ladies Walk.
Ladies Walk. Sorry.
Listen, whatever you were doing down there is another story.
There's actually a road in Cork. I think it goes up towards Glanmire. That's called Lovers Walk, and I got confused over that. But interestingly, it used to be called Lepers Walk because whatever era when lepers were a big thing, they were sent walking up this road from a certain facility or whatever. So it was known as Lepers Walk. And then I think they tried to, make the area sound that little bit nicer. I mean, who's going to want to buy a house on Lepers Walk, really? So
yeah. It's not great. Yeah, when it comes to marketing or anything like that. Fergus Butler has a couple of good nicknames here. The Johnnies for St. John's in Belfast and Schlockneil. The Robbies. I wasn't that familiar, and you've played them. Were you familiar with the Robbies?
No, never heard of that one.
I hadn't heard that one. Now, to be fair.
What about Killinall, the Robins?
What's the origin?
I don't know, but there's a robin on their crest.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Actually, Argentina rugby, you know what they're called? The Pumas.
Mm.
The animal that's actually on their crest is a leopard. So it was like something lost in translation, or somebody just thought that was the correct animal to put in, so they're called the pumas, but they actually have a leopard on the
and they're too thick to change it now.
Yeah. Carrick Swans, the Swan. Oh, well, it's Carrick Swan, so I think they're actually called the Swan, unless there's another club you're talking about. Blacks and Whites, of course, Skov Augustine or whatever they're called. The Fighting Cocks and Carlow has to take that title.
That's for the name now. That's not a nickname. That's the name. And Sean O'Brien cocked a pint the other night for them from full forward as well.
Actually, Fergus Butler adds after Robert Emmett. So I knew that they were Schlockneil Emmets, but I didn't.
Robbie's okay. Very good. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, back to Ballybrown beating Gary Spillane.
Sorry, now someone had in there Mossy Lions, Middleton are the Magpies. The Rockies is a good one. The Bars, the Glen they're all good ones as well now down in Cork. I know they're fairly original or whatever, and they're fairly obvious, but they're all good names. Like when you're talking about like you would have grown up hearing about the Rockies or the Bars or the Glen. Do you know what I mean?
River Power says the Cross for Holy Cross, Ballycahill, and Slashers for Longford.
Yeah, that's officially their name though. Do you know what I mean? Which is kind of River Power, send us an old DM privately there with some of your best club nicknames that you can't publish here.
He's after saying about Nina Air the gentleman. That's a fair
no. I tell you something. If you show your face in McDonough Park again, I'd say you want to turn around fairly quickly. Have the door of the car open, or have someone sitting in the car ready to take you off.
So Clare, according to Adrian McGrath, are called the Milesians. Beat that. So I've just quickly Googled it. And so the definition this is based on Wikipedia. In the Leber Gabala Éireann, a medieval Irish Christian pseudo history, the Milesians, or son of Meal, are the final race to settle in Ireland. They represent the Irish people. The Milesians are Gaels who sailed to Ireland from Iberia after spending hundreds of years travelling the earth. So, of course, Iberia being Spain and Portugal for those who've had their head under a rock for 100 years. Milesians in Irish mythical history, named for the people who drove the race of gods, the Tua de Danann below ground.
Tua de Danann, yeah, okay.
Tua de Danann, okay. Mount Bellew, the Belia. What's that? The Belia.
Yeah.
James Stevens, the village. Yeah.
Yeah, the village is a good one, in fairness. Yeah.
By the way, Colin Coughlin scored 1-3 for Ballybrown, and Barry Adams, he got a goal as well. On the other side, they're against Mungret St. Paul's. So winning that game would ensure that they join their neighbours in the last 8 and return to Group 1 for 2024. Mona Lean, 15 points. Mungret St. Paul's, 125. So they've booked their place in the quarterfinal. Have Mungret. That was comfortable win in Clahan, and they led from start to finish with Niall Mulcahy's goal, knocking any momentum that Mona Lean would have had. And let's see, a win over Ballybrown will see them promoted. We'll move on to the Kilkenny Championship there. Geez, Glenmore really are flying, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Did a bad result the last day, but they bounced back very well again. They had a 223 to 217 victory over Bennett's Bridge. That puts them into the league final where they play Dixborough. We'll just fly through the Group 1 results really quickly. James Stevens, 226, Ballyhale, 517. So Ballyhale were 9 down on 60 minutes. And TJ had a free from, I think, inside his own 45 that dropped short to win the game. So from the village being in pole position, a Brian Cody team surrendering a 9-point lead and nearly been beaten. It would have been disastrous if they had been beaten, especially with Ballyhale down all the players that they're down. And that leaves James Stevens end up in the league final now. So they're playing O'Loughlin Gales in, like, anytime they play, it's not a nothing game, but like that is an absolute nothing game. Nobody wants to be in that Shield final. Like it's an insignificance really. Ballyhale are in a relegation semi-final championship round 1 where they play Danesfort. Danesfort suffered a heavy defeat on the other side again. They were beaten 323 to 16 points against O'Loughlin's, and you'd have to say like that, like of all the sticky wickets to get, like that's the Ballyhale are going to start turning it on, and I'd say Danesfort are going to feel the brunt of it. A couple of other kind of funny results in Group B as well. Dixborough 419, Tullaroan 16. So I know Gro Dunn was missing for Tullaroan, but that is a bad defeat. What are we looking at? 30.
You were teeing them up to make a run this year.
No, I was basing it probably a lot on last year because they were the closest team to Ballyhale in Leinster, maybe outside of Kilmacud. I still think they could potentially turn things around, but the Borough are flying high there, and Clara had a 419 to 115 win over Mullinavat. So that all sets up the championship round one, Tullaroan played Bennett's Bridge, which is could be a belter of a game. Clare play Greg Ballycallan, and in the other relegation semi-final / championship round one, Erin's own Castlecomer against Mullinavat. So things really starting to heat up in Kilkenny now, and I have my doubts about whether Ballyhale are going to be able to not turn it around. I just think the bodies that they're missing, like they were operating on they're operating on 17, 18 players the last couple of years, with maybe Niall Shorter all coming in or Brian Butler coming in, but they're down 3 or 4 now, and I'm not even sure if they can be down those 3 or 4, or 4 to be down. Owen Reid is back starting again, and probably hadn't been a regular starter the last couple of years. I think Richard Hogan had a comment there. I think Owen Reid has every medal in the book. He has minor 20, in hurling, minor 21, senior All Ireland's with county. He is the Fitzgibbon with WIT, and he's all the county, provincial and All Ireland medals with Ballyhale as well. So he has a league title thrown into. I think he has all senior honours that he can have within the grades he's in.
Yeah, Hugh Paddy says Mount Leinster Rangers in Carlow were always Gashka, Knocklion, Oscuelga for years. Direct translations of Heroes of Leinster Hill. Not a bad little nickname.
That's not a bad one now, in fairness, yeah.
Yeah, and Richard Hogan says Tullaroan were going quite well prior to the weekend. So there's a couple of motions that will be going ahead at Special Congress. So I'll go through a few of them quickly. We kind of touched on them a little bit on Thursday's show. But the Munster Senior Hurling runners-up facing the third place Leinster Senior Hurling Championship in an All-Ireland quarter-final and vice versa. That's one that's being looked at. Again, look, the reason I don't like this, and I'd rather just cut out half the league, make up more time so that more...
No, hold on. Sorry. Oh, sorry. You're talking... This is Championship now, this motion. Yeah?
Yeah, so I'm just saying motions should be put in to cut the league in half, first off, so that rather than... so this will downsize the Championship doing that because you won't have the preliminary quarterfinals. But I'd rather than getting rid of more rounds, I'd be looking for ways that play the Munster and Leinster, then put the 2 league tables together and then let everyone start playing everybody. Whereas this is going to ensure that if you don't get out of Munster or if you don't get out of Leinster, you could go 5-6 years without seeing the likes of Tipperary ever playing Kilkenny. We've already gone 2020, 21, 22 and 23 without seeing Tipperary against Kilkenny in the Championship. That is a joke. We should be seeing that every single year. We should be seeing Cork versus Kilkenny or Wexford or whatever every single year. It's such a missed opportunity that these teams don't play each other. And we have them playing in the league in matches that don't matter, according to absolutely everyone, including the managers who always talk about league as league. This is such a waste. Why do we have all of these assets and we refuse to use them?
Is there a solution to what you're saying there without getting rid of the provinces?
Yes. Play the provinces, then put the 2 tables together so that all the teams from Leinster then play all the teams from Munster. And in total, you'll have 10 games each. So if you cut the league in half, it's grand. It'll still fit into the same time frame.
Is the league even, in that instance, would the league even be worth playing?
Oh, I'd happily get rid of it in the morning.
Yeah, it's been really poor the last couple of years. And me and you would get excited about any sort of games of hurling, but you're not even sure what you're looking at. You know what I mean? It's very hard to assess what you're looking at, and you can end up reading too much into X, Y, or Z or whatever. So, I definitely would be looking at shortening the league, or if they're going to keep it, which it looks like they are. I don't know. There has to be more on the line. There has to be more at stake. I know what you're saying, but what you're saying is not going to happen in the foreseeable, or definitely not for the next couple of years. I wouldn't think so anyway.
But I just think we should be moving towards it. We should be making little changes now, because they only ever happen by degrees. Make changes that are going to facilitate that happening. What they're doing there is actually copper fastening that it's not moving in that direction.
Yeah. We have a kind of tendency to do that though. I don't know when we're going to see really kind of seismic change. Saying that, seismic change as regards the Championship, obviously the round robin came in 18 and it's been a roaring success, but I do think they need to have a look at, I don't know, if the league is going to be there, it has to be more incentives for teams. There has to be something there for them to really go for it, whether that's financial incentives, whether that's some sort of championship incentive, whether that's a backdoor option or something like that, or some way that you're incentivizes you to really go hard for the league, because there's nothing there at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, but do you agree with the point? We haven't seen Kilkenny against Tipperary for the last 4 years. That's ridiculous. What other sport in the world would have 2 of their top teams not playing each other for years?
Yeah, It's mad. It's mad. What was the longest gap Kilkenny went without playing Tipperary in Championship? Probably 20 years at different stages. People would harp back and say, but they didn't play for 20 years back then. But I just think things have moved on an awful lot more
that's
now.
not a good
Do you know
thing.
what I mean?
Like,
yeah.
People say, oh, it's happened before. Yeah, and it was stupid, and let's not do it again.
It's stupid. Change it now.
Okay, there's another thing here that the Galway minor hurlers be permanently considered participants in the Leinster Championship. See no reason why that wouldn't be the case. You, as someone in Leinster County that struggled for a number of years, you're obviously doing well now. How do you feel about that?
No, I don't have any great issue with it. But like, would Offaly have gotten to the All Ireland minor hurling final in 2022 if Galway had been in Leinster? Maybe not. But it does force you to really up your standards. Like Galway were in the under 20 this year, and we beat them. They didn't even get to a semi-final, let alone a final. So,
but was all of this like because about ye lifting your own standards rather than it doesn't matter what Galway did. Once you reached your standards, you're then getting back to finals and winning finals and stuff. It's nothing to do with Galway.
Oh no, true enough. Yeah, but I don't have any issue with. I don't have any great issue with Galway being in Leinster, because I tell you why I don't have an issue, because I think it's better for hurling long term to have Galway not coming in playing an All-Ireland quarter-final or some round-robin stages, and it's just mad kind of what's going on there. They're getting so little games. Look at the amount of games Galway minors played last year with that kind of change in format. They played a heap of games, probably more last year, more in 2023 the minors played than any of the previous three teams have played. So I think from a hurling point of view overall, and I think you can't be selfish in that regard. You have to look outside of Offaly or Kilkenny or wherever. Yeah, we mightn't win as many Leinster titles or whatever, but I think hurling would be better for it.
Actually, I'm just thinking there about the Tip Kilkenny rivalry. I think it was 1971 to 1991. That I think that famine lasted. There's a couple of different things going on here. Richard Hogan says, a rising boat lifts all tides. A rising tide lifts all boats,
I think it's the opposite way around, I'd say, yeah.
But still, the sentiment comes through. Mossy Line says, totally agree, championship should be extended. Came out of home, Cork v Tip Championship this year, said, what a game, what a night, but won't have another full Parky Queef game until for another 12 months. Right, so some of the other motions going forward, the provincial councils may be permitted to organise their under-20 championships as they see fit, i.e. does not need to be knockout. Yeah, again, I mean, that should be fine.
What do you think of that? Then there could be a massive disparity between, there was this year, no, they were both the same, weren't they? There were groups this year in Munster, and there were two separate groups in Leinster as well. They all got a heap of games, but you could have two provincial councils playing completely different championship setups within the one championship, if you get me.
Yeah, I mean, it should be, I suppose, coordinated nationally, really, to make sure that the best things happen for everyone.
I would have thought so, yeah, because you could have, for instance, if Leinster wanted to do it, Leinster could play a knockout under 20, where some teams only get one game. In Munster, they could play the kind of round robin thing like they did this year, where every team got at least 3 or 4 games. So I don't know. I'd probably prefer it to be uniform, but maybe you don't know what does be going on at provincial council level. Maybe there's something to that, or there's more of a point to it.
Yeah, maybe actually this is a perfect situation or perfect age grade where you get rid of provinces. Just have 2 groups of whatever, or 3 groups of whatever.
That'll be the start of it. Then again, when that happens, I think you're. Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't even hazard a guess at when you're looking at something like that to happen, to be honest with you. And plus, the GA have a big sponsor in Allianz pumping money into the league. Now, if I was Allianz...
But you could always transfer their sponsorship to the league stages of Munster and Leinster.
You could. Would Centra, Very, etc. be as happy if they're sponsoring the whole championship, whereas they're only getting a segment of it? But if I was Allianz, I would not be happy with the bang I'm getting for my buck at the minute. With a competition that's not taken seriously by a hell of a lot of counties.
So you could have, let's say, Allianz in this situation, they sponsor the provincial leagues, so which is basically the Munster champion, so the provincial championships, and then they're on every other sponsor. They sponsor the All Ireland series. So, and actually, all games are worth something all the time. I think it'd be far better. And then you've even got like brief little knockout stages at the end. which I've talked about before. But anyway, another motion is that All-Ireland Senior Football and Hurling finals be played on or before the last Sunday in July, barring exceptional circumstances when the CCC or when Central Council can make other arrangements. Would you be happy enough with that?
I probably would have. I probably would have let it go back a week or two. Being honest with you,
that would be going back a week or two. I think the All Ireland was July. 17th.
Oh, sorry, it was the middle. Yeah. Yeah. If it buys another week, and yeah, no, I just think we need another week or two in the championship just to. I know people will go mad, but to let it breathe a small bit, I just think it's way too condensed for the squads involved. And I do think it's too condensed from a promotional point of view as well. We fell from the All Ireland football semi-finals into the week of the All Ireland hurling final this year, and everything just goes by in a whirlwind. And I don't think you get to build up the games enough. Being honest with you, and I don't think it affects clubs. It will affect the clubs involved by a week or two. That's it. Only those clubs, not the majority, not. No more, 30 counties will be able to proceed as normal. So I don't think it affects the club game at all.
Yeah, and another motion is that a county may be empowered to increase their eligibility rules to prevent a player who celebrates his 70th birthday prior to January 1st of the championship year from playing in the competition. So that will be coming from Central Council as well. Like the frustrating part is there are 17-year-olds who are well equipped physically to be able to play senior level and who probably aren't playing multiple competitions. The trouble is you can't trust individual managers and individual clubs to all do the right thing for players all the time. They might have played a couple of games, but look, we really need him, lads. We'll have to play him this weekend. Sure, look, he'll be grand. And some lads end up getting flogged. Oh, it's a shame, like, and I'd say this with the junior team in Kula at the moment. There's like 5 or 6 lads who all of a sudden can't play, who are really good and playing against full adult teams, like the second team from Plunkett's, the first team from different clubs as well. And you're like, you don't have them now for the rest of the year. It's a shame for them they don't get to play against adults. Shame for me I don't have lads to do the running for me. But I do understand that you can't always trust every club to do the right thing, and every management team, I should say, within that.
It's short-sightedness usually by a certain cohort that basically affects why like I remember in Burr, I remember lads that were under 16 been on the Burr senior panel and been very, very close to playing senior championship, or been really influential players on the intermediate team. Do you know what I mean? And they were ready to go at the time, and they weren't being flogged ratting, or they were balancing it fairly well between all their teams. But it's that short-sightedness of a manager saying, yeah, I know he played a game last night, but we need him tonight. And then he's a hip problem or whatever, and then he's not playing at all. So yeah, it really kills rural clubs where they need a 15-year-old, or they need 15 maybe is a bit much. They need a 16-year-old that's, a standout minor or something like that. That they're the ones that probably really get hurt. The ones in the town, not so much.
Yeah. In the Longford final, Congish Gales, they held off a bit of a fight back from Longford Slashers, who we mentioned earlier actually, to win their back-to-back county titles. That was 2-14 to 1-14. In Laois, there was a couple of quarterfinals, which, kind of now makes evident what the semi-finals are going to be. St. Lazarians of Abbey Leaks, they eventually burned off Rose Nallis. That was 326 to 16 points. So it got, they pulled away significantly towards the end. And a dramatic late goal from Conor Phelan in the 63rd minute sent the match between Clough-Ballacollet and Castletown to extra time. So that was 225 to 224 when it was all said and done there. So incredibly exciting game there. And we now know that the semi-finals in Laois are going to be Camross against Clough-Ballacollet and Rathdowney Earl against Abbey League. So that's pretty tasty stuff there. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, no, Clough-Ballacollet survived by the sounds of things. Going for 4 in a row, obviously survived against Castletown. Camross beat Burr actually in the Leinster League final earlier on this year, and we're moving fairly well. And I know Rathdowney have put up a good few tasty enough performances on the challenge game circuit in recent years as well, in recent weeks I should say as well. So Clough-Ballacollet are probably favourites to win it out, but very, very marginally. Very, very. That's Abbey Leaks to be definitely a clear outsider of the 4. Clough-Ballacollet beat Camross in last year's final and beat them fairly convincingly, but I'm hearing from the Camross way that things are humming fairly well this year. So yeah, that'll be another tight semi-final, and I'd fancy Rathdowney Earl in the other one.
There was a big story over the weekend. I saw the Sunday World had it on the front of their newspaper anyway about Rory Gallagher doing a training session, and he was pictured the whole lot. And Ulster GAA, they've temporarily debarred him from training teams. And there was talk that he'd done some training sessions up in Ulster. He'd obviously stepped back last May from the Derry job after social media postings from his former wife Nicola about I suppose allegations over domestic abuse over a couple of years of their marriage. But an Ulster GA statement said, Ulster GA wish to confirm that Mr. Rory Gallagher has been temporarily debarred without prejudice from the GA until the Ulster GA safeguarding panel conclude their work. We will not be making any further comment on those matters at this time. To be fair, there's not a whole pile we can add to it at the moment, but it was something that was quite striking over the weekend.
No, definitely. I'd have to question the clubs involved here, how wise of a decision it would be to have Rory Gallagher taking sessions at this moment in time while there's an investigation going on. I think you just have to wait for due process to go on and see what decision is made, and then you can kind of react to that or whatever. But I think it was, I don't think it was the smartest thing in the world to have him taking sessions while in the middle of this kind of storm at the moment. Yeah,
should this have all been wrapped up by now? Like he stepped away in May. It's now September.
Yeah, interestingly as well, Shane. There has been a word from Derry about who's going to manage Derry for 2024. And I know Conor Glass was speaking recently about, or was it Brendan Rodgers that did, I can't think of his name. His name is escaped. Kieran Mina. Yeah, like that, he'd be well capable of taking them on or whatever. But there's been a lot of radio silence there. You're looking at a team that was within a score of being in an All-Ireland final, and publicly anyway, nobody knows who's going to manage them for 2024, which is kind of a crazy enough one. Do you know what I mean? Are they, and I'm only speculating here, but if the investigation is wrapped up in the next 6 weeks and Rory Gallagher is there's a not guilty verdict or whatever, like, will he be the Derry manager for 2024? I just think it's a bit mad that a real, a top power county at the moment, we don't know who's managing for 2024, and obviously, there's a lot going on in the background at the moment.
Yeah, so the Kerry Intermediate Football semi-final over the weekend was incredibly dramatic. Fossa eventually beat Austin Stacks, who were county champions at senior level just a couple of years ago, on penalties, 3-2. And this was after a draw of 21 points apiece. David Clifford's doing David Clifford things. He scored 13 points, 10 of them from play. I'm sure Austin Stacks had an idea who he was before the game. And still in all, he does what he does. That clutch score he got at the end, where he did the 1-2 driving solo, knocked it over, running away from the goals. Just like at that stage of the game, he's played the guts of 80 minutes, and he still finds a way to get it done. That sent it to penalties. And to be fair, their goalkeeper was a bit of the hero of the hour there. Let me just double check what his name was again. The goalkeeper. You have a little comment there.
It's a bit of a joke what Clifford is doing every weekend, and it's great that Clubber are broadcasting these games and everyone gets to see that point. Like that would up until COVID, we'd only hear about that, it's great stuff from Radio Kerry and that, and the commentaries and that. But it's great to actually see it, and as you say, like, Fossa were coming up against a team here that were beaten in a Munster club final by the Bars by a score in 2021. Like, the Stacks are a powerhouse, and the Stacks were probably provisional favourites for the All-Ireland Intermediate Club Championship. Fossa were junior last year, and now all of a sudden they're within 60 minutes of being senior. Like, it is remarkable. And I know we'll talk about David plenty, but Paddy was unbelievable, and his breaking runs and the speed of him. But for Clifford to kick 10 from play and to score that one, I love the build up to that clutch score at the end. And his teammates, and I love this in a team where they know how good he is. There's no ego about them. They're just trying to get him the ball. They're doing everything possible to get him the ball. It's brilliant. They know that he's the one. If they're going to get the penalties and get a chance to win the game, they need to get the ball to him. And in fairness to him, he's making all sorts of probing runs out around the 65, and he eventually gets the yard. I think there's 3 on top of him. And it's just an absolutely unbelievable score. And you could see when the penalties were over, just what it meant to him. Like whatever about winning All Irelands with Kerry, and you'll always say it, whatever you win with your club is like, there's no comparison. And if they were to win an intermediate crown, with Kerry, it'd be a remarkable rise. I know he's the best player in the country and he's go down as one of the best players of all time, but you need more than that, and they clearly have more than that. And they won the league without him this year, I think, without him and Paddy. And the fact that the keeper was the hero, it was someone else that did the business to get them through is unbelievable too.
Yeah, Shane O'Sullivan, actually, he's the hero. There's a Shane O'Sullivan winning county titles with Ballygunner, but Shane O'Sullivan here. And like, so he made a few penalty saves at one end. At the other end, Austin Stacks decided to take off goalkeeper Michael Tansley and put in Wayne Guthrie, who's the former Kerry FC goalkeeper. Now, he made one great save. But, you know, that was an interesting decision to go full Louis van Gaal when he brought on Tim Krul for that World Cup semi-final a few years ago. Was it 2018, maybe 2014, whichever it was. But like, that's an interesting decision as well, especially within a small town. Well, you know, Tralee's not that small, but within a town situation. One thing, Louis van Gaal, who doesn't care what anyone thinks about anything. But another thing here, where it's a small town and you're like, it's a fair gamble to make, isn't it? And you couldn't say that it didn't pay off. They lost it, but he made a penalty save. No one knows what would have happened if the other goalkeeper had to stay in there, but it's a fair decision to make.
Yeah, it is a fair decision. I don't know if it was maybe something that was agreed beforehand or something like that, if it did go to that stage. But it's kind of ironic maybe that the fella in the other goal, Shane O'Sullivan, who's not a soccer goalkeeper or doesn't play with Kerry FC, was the hero in the wind-up. But it's gas, like, and this is the effect that David Clifford has on us all and the GA, like the fact that, you know, there's a Kerry club football final at the weekend that had its fair share of drama, but it's all about David Clifford. It's all about Fossa, really. And they are, like, I don't know if you saw, there was a brilliant clip of, I'm not 100% sure where the two lads were, but they were following the game on Radio Kerry, two guys from Fossa, and there's the young fella about 35 years old, and his dad is like cleaning a countertop behind him, listening to the penalties. He couldn't even look at the radio. It's not like they had the match on telly. He couldn't even look at the radio. Then all of a sudden the penalty is saved. He turns around and he's delighted. But it's just it's unbelievable the rise that Fossa have made, and Stacks were the favourites for the championship. So they've done one leg of the hardest work that they need to do. They just need to go and finish the job now.
And a question here from ML89. Who has more county medals, Shane or Verney?
Senior.
Yeah.
I have 4.
I have 5.
Ooh! Here, this is terrible. My first 4 years at Borough, we won county titles and haven't won one since. Your
first 4 years you won them?
Yeah, 5 to 8. And haven't won one since. And Leinster thrown in there as well, but I haven't won one since. And I'm not going to win a senior at this stage either now, because I'm not involved anymore.
We had to drag that out of you that you won a Leinster as well. Galway Football Championship over the weekend. Carlisle were beaten comfortably by Corofin 2-18-4. Salt Hill knocked Cara 8, Barna 9. Anna Down 12, Milltown 1-11, Uachtarard 1-12, Killannon 3-14, St James's 1-9, Anspidale 7, Moycullen 2-16, Navanna 3-7, Clare Galway 2-16, St Michael's 1-12. In the final game, Dunmore McHale stayed on 11 points to 10 win over Toom Stars. In the Dublin Football Championship, St Vincent's had a narrow victory over Nafiana, so that was 116 to 18 points. So that's Nafiana, last year's finalists. They're dumped out. Keane Dunn's 9 points helped Vincent's gradually reel in Nafiana, with Sean Lamb's goal in the 43rd minute being crucial. Whitehall Column Kills 1-9, St Jude's 2-12. So Jude's have gone through top. They've won all their games there. Sean Kerwin's goal, that was key there. In the next, you feel free to jump in whenever you like. In the next group, then Group 2, Kilmacud Crokes 117, Skerry's Harps 17 as well. Hugh Kenny finding the net there. Points from Paul Mannion and Shane Walsh were crucial in the second half. Castleknock 112, St Sylvester's 110. Tommy McDaniel, Westmead man, he hit 1-5 from play. Alex Wright, I should say, converted a penalty for Sills. Do you want to go on to Group 3?
Yeah, I surely will. Coola had a 113 to 12 points win over Thomas Davis. Thomas Davis are already through, but Coola needed to get a result here, and they surely did. Cal Dorn got the goal. I believe Con O'Callaghan and Luke Keaton impressed as well. They were 110 to 9 points ahead at half time, and I'd say it was a dour enough second half if Coola only added 3 points and Thomas Davis only added 3 points as well. So I wouldn't say the second half was too hectic. Con finished with 6 points. Massive win for Raheny, 7-15 to Lucan Sarsfield's 2-6, but Brian Howard was forced off injured and could be out for the remainder of the Dublin Championship. So that brilliant result is after coming with a bit of a loss to them as well. And just an interesting one from the Crokes. Like, geez, you would talk on paper the Crokes would be beating Skerry's Harps comprehensively enough. They've not that they've limped through the group stages. They definitely haven't lit it up yet. I'd imagine they're timing their run, or they've had 2 really long campaigns. I'd imagine they're trying to time it. I imagine to give them plenty of rest between the 2 campaigns, and they're trying to time their run now. But you can't take too many chances. They're in the last 2 All-Ireland club finals. They beat Jude's by a point, wasn't it, the first year, and they beat Nafina by a point or 2 last year. So you kind of, you can time it, but you kind of have to be right to win Dublin as well. They can't be at 70 or 80%.
Yeah, Ballymun Kickham's beat Ballantyre 112 to 11 points in the other group. So Robbie Bulger scored 1-3, Dean Rock had 5, and Carl Deely, he scored 2 points from wing back. Ballyboden 3-17, Temple Oak, Sing Street 2-7. The Offaly Football Championship, we've kind of touched on it already. Road 114 for Ban 20 after extra time. Actually, that sounds like a draw there. What was the final score, actually, do you know?
No, it was 114 to 20, yeah. Yeah, 114 to 20.
114 to 20. Sorry, I had 214 to 20 in my head. And then the other semi-final, Tullamore beat Edenderry by a point. I think you've probably already covered that off, have you?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot here now. Who's your goat of the week?
David Clifford in football.
Mine are goats of the week. The 2 Shane O'Sullivans, Shane O'Sullivan Fossa and Shane O'Sullivan Ballygunner.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout.
Yeah, I was going to say it as we were talking there. It's rare that you actually think too much about the goat while the show is actually going on. But it's amazing the eyeballs that Clifford is even bringing on the club game. He's a godsend for promotion of the club game as well, because every weekend we have people talking about what's going on, in these, in an intermediate championship game. When have you ever had we never had a focus like we had on a junior championship like we had last year when Fossa were flying, and we've probably never had a focus on the intermediate championship like we have at the moment as well.
Yeah, I give Shane O'Brien from Kilmallock the goat of the week in the hurling as well. So okay, what have we to move on to next? We have let's see. You talked about the Offaly Championship there. In Cork, Ballincollig, they beat Éire Óg by 210 to 111. Carbery Rangers lost to Valley Rovers 114 to 11. Castlehaven 116, Clonakilty 114. St. Michael's had a 12 points to 11 win over Mallow. Nemos off Carrigal Line 15 points to 19, and St. Finbarrs were 7 points victors over Douglas 115 to 18.
Interesting one here. ML89 has David Connor said something last week about Johnny Glynn potentially kicking football, and ML89 says Johnny Glynn was with Cartoon Shamrocks over the weekend too. So he's obviously around most weekends, and he obviously played with New York earlier on for that famous win they had over Leitrim. I'd say he was trying to keep his head down for a couple of days because he was caught in the middle of a storm. We haven't heard anything or any ruling from the Galway County Board about that incident against Sarsfields, but I'm sure that'll come out in the next couple of days.
Yeah, a spade is spade. Like, if there's a way of retrospective action, considering he's already been yellow carded, it does merit a ban. There's no 2 ways about it. It absolutely does. Conor Heaney says Douglas and St. Michael's are playing off as they were level on score difference. ML89 says Shane Walsh's home club Kilkerran Clonberne in intermediate relegation semi-final versus Pádraig Joyce's Killearn. What is it? What way is it pronounced again?
See, I always get Pádraig Joyce's club mixed up with the Wexford club, Matty Ford, Killearn. I think it's just, is it Killearn? But I always get mixed up with Matty Ford's club, Killearn.
It's Killearn. Killearn.
Killearn, okay.
Not spelled correctly there, ML89, not hammering you, but it just isn't. But wouldn't you love to see Kilkerran Clonberne against Fossa?
Yeah, you would, yeah. Well, with Shane Walsh playing for them, you would.
Yeah,
definitely,
of course.
in particular, yeah. Obviously, if Fossa were to win the Kerry Intermediate, I don't know if Kerry people would want them going on a big run again, would they? I don't know
Definitely
if they would.
Not. But it would be some jump to go from winning the Junior All-Ireland to, going on a run for an Intermediate All-Ireland. Has that been done before?
Richard Hogan was talking about there. I think Bennett's Bridge did it. In hurling, won a Junior one year and won Intermediate next year, and then might have been in a Kilkenny Senior final 2 years after, I think, which is an incredible rise. And we were talking about that in the show. in recent weeks as well. Like, that's a remarkable rise through the ranks. But I don't know if Kerry people want Clifford being dragged through the muck for the next 3 months. Do you know as well? If Fossa do win, it will have a massive ramification on the strength of East Kerry in the Kerry Football Championship from 2024 onwards too, because they wouldn't be nearly as strong. Obviously, take David and Paddy out of that, they still have a lot of brilliant players, but they're not going to be dominating. It's funny because when East Kerry won the first one a couple of years ago, everyone was thinking, actually, these Fossa are never going to get up to senior, and East Kerry are going to win, could win 10 and 15 years, something like that. But yeah, the two of their best players could be gone from next year onwards.
Are you watching the Rugby World Cup, lads? Says Pádraig O'Malley. I've watched a bit of it, and it's been not great. I mean, the Wales-Fiji was pretty good last night, but I watched France-New Zealand on Friday. I just thought it was like kick tennis for most of the game. Scrum after scrum after scrum. Yeah, I got a lot of one-sided games as well. Yeah, I haven't been blown away by it.
I haven't seen much now. It was a busy weekend. I didn't see much, but I tell you what, it's amazing when a World Cup comes around, no matter what England have done beforehand, they seem to deliver on the biggest stage. And they obviously went, I didn't actually see the red card, but it was controversial enough or harsh enough, I think. And they managed to hammer Argentina with 14 men for 70-something minutes. Someone tweeted yesterday, well done to Argentina on playing your first game of rugby. Because it was like they must have been that bad, because results in the Southern Hemisphere had been okay. But England usually deliver when it comes to World Cup.
Yeah, it's like there's a real inconsistent application of the rules in terms of head collisions. Tom Curry got sent off for something that other teams were like Wales seemed to get away with murder yesterday. The amount of times they gave away penalties inside their own 22, and they seem to not get the yellow cards that they merited. But sure, look, that's a story for another day.
Yeah, listen, referees all have their biases, GA and otherwise, rugby as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's it from the show. We'll be back again on Thursday. Michael, take it handy. We'll chat to you then.
Cheers, Shane. Good luck.